Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Irvin, also known as Kabuman. Welcome to CompTIA A Plus 1101 and 1102 practice questions. These are completely free from the CompTIA themselves. If you need a link to these, please let me know in the comments below, or just go to the comments. There should be somebody who already asked for the links. This is not a sponsored video. They see me as competition, probably because I provide free content, which is perfectly fine. The reason I'm making this video is because some companies do ask for certifications for A+, because A+ is one of the most common ones. And for those reasons, I wanted to provide some free examples. Again, this is completely free from the CompTIA website. That being said, let's get into it. So just so you know, in this video, I'm going to talk about the answers, and I'm going to talk about how to get to these answers and not just give you answers. Because on my channel, we are learning stuff, not necessarily just wanting answers for the questions that may come up in these types of certifications. Question number 1. A technician needs to replace a failed power supply on a server. So it's a power supply, and we all know that the power supply is a component of a computer. In this case, computer is the server that powers the other components in the server itself. So it's basically the thing that you plug in your cord. The server in question only has one power supply. So servers sometimes can have multiple power supplies depending on the size of the server. In this case, it just has one. The server contains two processors that need 100 watts, five hard drives that need 9 watts, and a GPU that uses 200 watts of power. Which of the following power supplies should technician use? So in this case, we're just going to use logic, common sense, and a little bit of math to figure out which size power supply we're going to use when it comes to the wattage. Wattage meaning how much power is provided, and also in this case we need to consider how much is required for all of these components to work optimally and to basically just work without failing when it comes to the power supply. So here it is. Let's go to it again. We're just going to do some simple math. The server contains two processors that need 100 watt. So for this, we're just going to say 2 times 100 is 200, right? So let's keep that in mind. So far we got 200 watts that we need minimum. 5 hard drives that need 9 watts. So 5 times 9 is 45. Added to the 200, that's 245. And then we got a GPU that uses 200 watts. Then we're going to add that to our 245, which is 445. So we need a power supply that has minimum of 445 watts of maximum power that it can provide. So here are options. A, 375 watts, that's not enough. We got B, 425, close but not enough. Then we've got C, 325, not even close. And then we got D, 500 watts. So obviously the answer here is D, because it's better to have extra capability when it comes to the providing power, when it comes to wattage that a power supply can have, in order to basically just have a safety margin in case any of these components decide to pull more than our required 445. So we can't go under, but it's okay to go over when it comes to the power supply. Matter of fact, most computers, most servers have power supplies that are rated over their maximum what they need when it comes to the operation. So the answer here is D, 500 watts. Question number 2. An organization uses a cloud storage to store company files, right? So cloud storage can be anything. It could be OneDrive, it could be Google Drive, anything that is used as cloud storage to store company files. Everybody knows what this is. The file synchronization client for this cloud service is installed on every user's computer. So again, if we use an example of OneDrive or Google Drive, this is something that has to be installed on every person's computer in order for them to be able to store things on the cloud, right? The cloud in this case is the internet, because it's hosted either by Google or Microsoft, right? It is a network, it's on the network, but it's not on a local network, it's not on the intranet, it's on the internet, which is why it's called cloud storage. So cloud storage is something, a naming scheme that's being used in the past decade, I want to say. One user reports, so one user reports that a file synced with the client to their computer does not contain the information a coworker of theirs added earlier. So somebody that works for this company, one person, cannot see what was uploaded to their shared OneDrive or G Drive, right? Because you can go to OneDrive and or G Drive or anything else that is cloud-based storage, and you can have a shared access where everybody can upload things to it, a shared folder, but for some reason one person cannot see what was being uploaded by somebody else. So they can't see it. We know it's one person and not multiple people, right? And then it says here, indicate the best action to take when troubleshooting this problem. So keep in mind that it's one person that's having this problem, and that is a client that is installed on every person's computer that is used to synchronize to cloud storage service that's being used. All right, option A, I should say, exit the cloud service client that is locally installed, restart the computer, and check to see if the file contains the information that it's missing. I mean, you could do this, but it not necessarily get you to the right answer. B, visit the cloud service websites, locate the service status page, and determine if there is a service outage impacting the organization. No, because it's only one person that's being affected, not entire organization, right? So this is not a proper troubleshooting step. And we've got C, open the cloud services client. Oh, so, okay, that is locally installed, right? So remember, we talked about this. It's a client that is locally installed. They talked about this in the question itself. Determine if there are any reported errors and follow the steps provided to correct the synchronization errors. So now we're getting into something that's way more specific to our issue. So it's the cloud service client that's locally installed. It's part of the question, so that must be it. Determine if there are any reported errors and follow the steps provided to correct the synchronization errors. So when it comes to OneDrive and G Drive, you will get errors. They will tell you what the problem is when it comes to synchronization. Usually it would just say synchronization failed, right? So that's a really good step, but let's go to D just to make sure that we're not missing something. Open the cloud service client that is locally installed and check to see if there are any updates available for the client. Now, this could potentially be a problem too. I would say A and D could potentially be a troubleshooting step that you can take. However, C here is way more specific, and for those reasons I would use this as an answer, simply because the question itself specifically talks about client and talks about that it's locally installed, and it talks about here about synchronization errors. So this is way more specific to the problem, and for those reasons we're going to choose C as the answer for our question. Question number 3. A technician is helping a user configure a new mobile phone. So it's a new mobile phone, you're helping them set them up. The user could pay for purchases with previous phone by touching the phone to the payment system. So if you go to the store and if your phone is capable and it has like an app that you can use to pay for things like Apple Pay, you can basically just bring your phone to the part, the thing that you use it to scan your card or something to take payments. I don't know why I'm being so awkward about it. Which of the following features should the technician enable so that you can use the new phone to also pay for purchases this way? All right, so we got some options and we have to basically figure out the correct technology that is used for this. So we got A, which is PAN, which I believe stands for personal area network. No, we don't necessarily need this. Is not necessarily related to this. B, RFID. I think this stands for radio frequency identification. So not in this case. I don't think so. C is near field communication. Okay, that might be something there. And then we've got Bluetooth, right? What is Bluetooth used? Well, mainly for like your headphones and transferring files and stuff like that. In this case, the answer is NFC, near field communication system. This is what it's used to basically, send a signal to the payment mechanism, so that way you can just pay by basically bringing your phone next to it, right? So that's what that is. RFIDs, just to kind of touch back on this, RFIDs I think are used by some credit cards. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with it, to be honest, but that's what it stands for. Radio frequency ID. And this can be used in IDs or credit cards or whatnot. Anyways, we're going to move on from that. Question number 4. A user recently reported that every few days the system clock is approximately 3 minutes behind. The system clock in this case, I'm assuming they're referring to the computer itself. And here it says the user also received an error message on the BIOS screen. Okay. Which of the following would most likely fix the clock issue? So there is an issue when it comes to the system, like, whenever you hover over your little taskbar on the right hand side where your time is, the system clock is 3 minutes behind. All right, let's talk about this. A, enable dual channel memory by adding a second RAM stick. Now this has nothing to do with this, okay? This has nothing to do with the system clock. RAM has nothing to do with system clock. Random access memory is not related. B, install a new power supply. We know already what the power supply is, so definitely not. Replace the motherboard's CMOS battery. Well, let's get back to that. And let's just see what D is. Configure the PC to be an NTP server? What? That's ridiculous. Okay, let's keep it simple. What keeps the settings on your computer is a CMOS battery. So for example, let's say you have any type of electronic that needs to stay on and retain information. For this reason, you need to have some kind of a power, right? And motherboards inside the computers contain what is called CMOS battery. And CMOS battery, it kind of looks like a watch battery. Like if you have a watch that uses one of those batteries, one of the little bit larger batteries for a watch. So anyways, it's a battery that's connected onto your motherboard to help retain system settings or BIOS settings, if you will. And one of those is the system clock itself. So the answer here is C, replace the motherboard's CMOS battery in case it's gone out. What happens if CMOS battery goes out? The systems get reverted to the default settings, which could be whenever the motherboard was created. So including the date and time. So let's say your motherboard is 5 years old, it's going to revert to that time until you connect to the internet or change the time yourself, or until you connect to the internet and the BIOS, some of the newer BIOS can have direct connection with the internet where you can update the time automatically. But traditionally speaking, in older computers, you have to set the time manually on the system BIOS itself. So that's what that problem is. All right, let's go to question number 5. A user with a new 5G smartphone notices the device has separated at the seam on the edge and is measurably thicker at that point. So on the edge of this new smartphone, this thing just kind of looks like it's measurably thicker, that it's just swollen up, right? You've probably seen this before. Which of the following actions should the user take first? All right, so we have to figure out, why is this thing suddenly thicker, right? It's kind of looks like it's swollen, right? That's most likely what the case is, just by using logic. And then here are some troubleshooting options. Power off the smartphone. So this is under A. Power off the smartphone and place it in a bucket of rice for 48 hours. Now the reason you would want to do this here is if you dropped your smartphone into water, right? People usually drop their phones into the toilet, let's be honest. So, or I mean, at most of the time, that's what happens. So rice is really good when it comes to absorbing moisture. This is why you would do this. And then B, place the smartphone in a refrigerator, 35 Fahrenheit, and between 35 and 40 Fahrenheit overnight. And here are the Celsius in there. This is ridiculous. Why would you want to do this? I have no idea what this troubleshooting step does, to be honest. This is, okay, whatever. Fully, this is C. I'm just going to move on to C. Fully deplete the phone's battery and then charge it to 100%. But it's physically swollen, right? Now, D, contact the smartphone manufacturers for warranty support. That's what I would do. Most cases when you start to see swelling on a phone that you haven't dropped into water or something like that, you know you haven't damaged it yourself, it's just starting to swell up. Chances are the battery itself is starting to swell up. That's what that is. This happens in laptops as well. So you would see a laptop that is starting to swell, and there's a big problem. That means that the battery itself is going bad, and you probably should look into replacing it. So the answer is D. Contact the smartphone manufacturer for warranty support, or replace the battery if you know how to. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this because I wouldn't know. I mean, I know how to do it, like I have an idea, but I would have to go look for a tutorial specific to my phone on how to do it. So I'm not saying you can't do it, but if you have warranty, then you might as well get it replaced. Question number 6. A technician is replacing a laptop's hard drive with an SSD. All right, that's good. Now, it's kind of misleading. If you pull up your operating system, the SSD will also be referred to as hard drive when it comes to the disk management, which is kind of misleading, by the way, and the device management. So if you open that up, you'll see it listed under hard drives, but it would actually be an SSD. Anyways, in this case, we know what we're talking about. Hard drive, in this case, refers to a mechanical magnetic type of hard drive that has a spinning disk inside. But solid state is the newer type of drive. It's just solid. It's just memory. Which of the following should technician do first? So we are replacing hard drive with an SSD, and it says here create a backup of the hard drive. Well, potentially you can certainly do that. That's definitely a good idea. B, upgrade the RAM on the laptop. This has nothing to do with this. This is ridiculous. Random access memory, in this case RAM, is completely different from hard drive memory and solid state drive memory. Why? In case you don't know, random access memory is temporary memory. So it's randomly accessed memory used for processing between CPU and the hard drive. Right? So what's going on is the memory is stored into the RAM temporarily for the sake of processing. And the reason it's stored inside of RAM is because RAM is typically way faster than any other storage. So that's what the RAM is used for, and it's temporary. Hard drive and SSDs are permanent, so for those reasons, this has nothing to do with this hard drive. C, enable SSD support at BIOS. No, SSD support it's unrelated. Unless you're talking about M.2 in some off chance settings, like older computers that not recently, but when M.2 drives came out, when it came as a new technology, in some cases you have to go into BIOS and change some things to make it work. However, SSD support in BIOS is non-existent. It's in the sense that you have to turn it on and off. And the reason I say that, there is no switch. It's non-existent switch. The reason I'm saying this is because SSD runs off SATA just like the hard drive itself. So hard drive and SSD run over SATA, typical traditional one, unless it's an M.2 type of drive. So there's nothing to enable because it's already enabled, right? So that's what I mean by that. And then D, install the SSD drive inside the OS. What? All right, let's talk about this. Install SSD drivers inside the OS. All right, let's break this down. So you don't need to install any drivers. Like I said, it runs over SATA. So traditional SSD that runs over SATA, there are no drivers to install. However, if you are installing M.2, some of them you can install a driver specifically for, in order to support things like NVMe, blah, blah, blah. So in case it's an M.2, then maybe you can do it. You don't have to. Windows OS natively supports any drive that you install. However, if you're for some reason not seeing the speeds that you want, you can go to the manufacturer's website and install the drivers. All right, So let's use some logic here. What was the first thing that you would do before replacing? Create a backup for the hard drive, and that's what I would do. Final answer. Question 7. Which of the following technologies has the fastest connection speed? All right, that's a good, cool question. So we got fiber. Fiber is really fast. So let's kind of, let's kind of think about that for now while we go to the other ones. We got B, satellite. Satellite can have really good download speeds, but the if I'm not mistaken, upload speeds are bad, or no, or they may have issues with latency. Satellite is really good when it comes to rural areas, like outside of city. I have trouble saying that word because English is my second language. So outside of like areas that don't necessarily have like internet access or cables around. Anyways, like farms and stuff. Satellite is good for that because it gives you an option of internet. DSL is older technology. This was used back in the day. I don't know if any but companies still use this. Oh, yeah, AT&T does, I suppose. For example, in America, they switched over to fiber because I have AT&T fiber. So I was thinking to myself, maybe they don't use, but they still use DSL. So it's not that fast because obviously fiber has upgraded. I don't know what the max for DSL is. Maybe 100 megabits? I don't know. Somebody correct me, please. Cable is pretty good, but download speeds are great. But when it comes to upload speeds, I had really bad luck with them. It was really bad. So, and I know for a fact that fiber is just crazy fast, that this type of connection cables are basically just signals sent over light signals over fiber, right? So fiber here in this case is the fastest. It's the newest technology when it comes to the internet. Fiber connections have existed for a long time. It's just they weren't used when it comes to the internet. That's my final answer. Question 8. A PC in conference room will be connected to a large TV for a video presentations during training sessions. Okay, that's straightforward. Which of the following video connectors is the most likely choice for this environment? So we just need to figure out how we're going to connect this PC in a conference room to a large TV. So we can have signal, so we can see something on the on the screen. And then it says here video graphics array. That's VGA in case you don't know. Video graphics array. Basically, it's a type of connector on the motherboard that was used on older computers. So some monitors and some computers, they still install this on them, but it's basically the blue connector that is that is used to connect. It's not digital, it's analog signal. You can use this, you could technically use it, but chances are a large screen TV is not going to have this connection. All right, so Thunderbolt, no, that's just data, right? I don't think Thunderbolt can send video signal. I might be wrong about that, but it's not typical. A TV is not going to have Thunderbolt, is my point, And then we got C, digital visual interface, DVI. I like how they're spelling this out. So yes, it's possible to use digital visual interface. That's the white connector that's a little bit longer than VGA. So VGA is blue connector. So if you look behind your monitor, you got blue connector, and then you've got a white connector that's a bit longer. The white connector is the DVI, which is digital visual interface. Yes, you can connect a TV. Some TVs do support this, and you can have for example, DVI to HDMI connector, which chances are TVs would have an HDMI, right? And then we've got the high definition multimedia interface. So here it is. This is HDMI. This is what it stands for, high definition multimedia interface. It's a TV, and we know that TVs have HDMIs, at least the new ones. The old ones would have some kind of a, what's it called? Composite? I don't know. Like, you remember anybody who's been in IT for a long time and knows about this stuff. Do you remember those yellow? It was like it was a yellow connector. Oh yeah, there was S video too. There was a S-video connector, and then there was one that's just a yellow cable that sends a signal, and then you had two separate cables for red, and what was the other one? Was it red and blue? I know there was a red, green, and blue. That was the composite. It's been a long time. It's an older type of connector. Anyways, if you know, let me know. I'm just kind of reminiscing more than anything. But yeah, none of that stuff exists anymore. Not on the new technology. So that would be that. So those are sample questions for the A plus 1101. All right, let's continue. So we're going to continue now with A plus 1102 practice questions. Question number 1. Which of the following symptoms is most likely sign of ransomware? Ransomware is when you get basically a virus that takes over your computer that doesn't allow you to do anything else with that computer. Basically, it blocks everything. You can't use your computer. It's locked down, right? So they want ransom, meaning they want money to unlock your computer. So that's what that is. And then, which of the following symptoms is most likely a sign of that? Internet connection is lost. No, that doesn't happen because the bad guys that install ransomware, they want to have connection to your computer. They're not going to remove internet connection because they want to have control of your computer. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a control of your computer. So they need to have a way to your computer, which is the internet. And then it says here, B, battery life is reduced. Nope. Again, they want to keep your computer on to make sure that you see it. So that way you can call them and give them money so they can unlock your computer. C, files on the device are inaccessible. So yes, so this here, that's the whole point of ransomware. They block you from using your computer basically, and they block your files. They keep them in they put, basically they hold them hostage until you pay the ransom, meaning money. And then D, a large number of ads appear. So you may get a pop-up that says call this number to unlock your computer, but there won't be a large number of ads necessarily. They'll just have one number for you to call usually because it's on your computer. So this is most likely the sign here. Files on your device are inaccessible. They're holding your computer hostage until you pay them money, which by the way don't, because it would encourage that type of behavior. Question number 2. A technician has been directed to dispose of a hard drive from a company laptop properly. So this is something that's typical within a business environment. Once you replace a laptop or you're recycling computers, you basically take the hard drive and you need to dispose them properly. This usually means making sure there's no data left on it. Company standards require the use of high-powered magnet to destroy data on decommissioned hard drives. So this is decommissioned hard drive, meaning that they're being replaced by something else. Which of the following data destruction methods should the technician use? Sorry. So they want to use a high-powered magnet to destroy data. In some companies, you would use simply a wipe, basically the DoD wipe, what it's called, Department of Defense data. Wiping means that you do multiple passes of erasing data on the storage. So what happens is if you actually delete something on your hard drive right now, not just your hard drive, like even if you're like a thumb drive, any type of storage media, any type of storage memory, you can actually recover that completely, even if you've deleted it from recycle bin. I know because I've done that as well. So you can actually recover, and for those reasons you need to delete it multiple ways, multiple passes, I should say. Let's say you're doing format of a drive. You have to format it multiple times in order to completely remove any traces of that. So why am I able to recover data that I've deleted? Well, it's kind of like magic. I don't completely understand it either, but that data, the traces and the signature of that data is somehow stored. That information about that data is somehow stored on your computer. And like I said, even if you see your thumb drive, for example, and it's empty, and it shows empty, there's available space, it's actually not empty. So if you've only if you only deleted it and not necessarily formatted the drive, the data will still be there. I know, it's like magic. But in this case, they want to use high-powered magnet. So we'll talk about that. So what are our options? First option is degaussing. I hope I'm saying this correctly. And that's actually what that is. This is a way to run a magnet over a media that would destroy data. So this is one way to delete this type of data. So degaussing that's what that means. You're using high powered magnet to destroy data on decommissioned drives. So you would basically put the hard drive into this contraption that has lots of these magnetic fields that have direct effect on the data that's being stored, and it would delete it. So the answer here is actually degaussing, but the other options are drilling. You can do that too. This would definitely destroy the data. It just depends on what your company prefers. Incinerating, you can do that too. And then of course you've got shredding. Whatever the preferred method, these are all methods of destroying data. And in this case, they want high-powered magnet to destroy data. And that's perfectly fine. All right. Question 3. A user reports being unable to access the internet or use wireless headphones on a mobile device. So they can't use internet or use wireless headphones on their phone, right? Or a mobile device. I guess it doesn't have to be a phone, but it is a mobile device. Technician confirms that the headphones are proper. Technician confirms the headphones properly connected to another device. I feel like the grammatics on this sentence aren't correct. Anyways, I digress. The technician confirms the headphones properly connected to another device. So the headphones are properly connected is what they're trying to say. Which of the following should the technician do to solve the issue? What are some reasons why you wouldn't have internet when it comes to the mobile device? So I would concentrate on this because that's another issue. And then it says here, or use wireless headphones. This is kind of in tandem here, meaning that this goes together and this is something we should concentrate on. So what's the main reason you wouldn't have internet on your phone? That's what I would concentrate on. And it says here, A, turn off airplane mode. Of course, we know that if you put your phone into airplane mode, it would basically turn off any communication, including the internet, which would affect your wireless headphones if you're using that to basically receive phone calls, right? B, connect to a different service set identifier. Nah, whatever. That's not related. Test the battery on the device. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. Disable near field communication. No, that's not it. The answer here is just by simply using logic, turn off airplane mode, because we know that airplane mode will disable internet, would also disable the use of wireless headphones, because in this case it appears that they're using wireless headphones to receive phone calls and stuff. So Bluetooth, right? So it's Bluetooth. I mean, I suppose it could be radio frequency, but we all know that it's Bluetooth, right, on the phone. And since you would have to disable all communications when you turn on airplane mode, it would also turn off Bluetooth. All right. Question 4. A sales staff member recently left a laptop at a hotel and needs a new one immediately. All right. After remotely wiping the old laptop, a support technician prepares to take a new laptop out of inventory to begin deployment process. Which of the following should the technician do first? All right. So they've lost the laptop, and the technician somehow got access to it remotely and initiated a wipe of the old laptop. Sure. So we're basically now trying to replace this laptop because the other one is gone. All right. Let's see what our options are. A, recycle all cardboard and other shipment materials appropriately. All right. Well, that goes without saying. Okay, whatever. I'm not worried about cardboard and shipping materials. Call the hotel and demand the old laptop be sent back to repair depot. I mean, this might be part of your job to actually call the laptop, wherever the laptop is, and ask them if they can send it back. Not necessarily something you would do when it comes to replacing the laptop, because right now, as a technician, we're concerned of preparing the new laptop. We're not necessarily concerned about the old laptop because we wiped it. We already wiped it. And C, confirm the shipping address for the new laptop with sales staff member. Okay, I mean, this could be part of the procedure, but that's not necessarily a first thing I would do, right? Because they're talking about here, which is the first thing I would do. And then it says here, D, document the serial number or username for asset management. So I would use this more than anything because it's very important to document the serial number of the new laptop and their usernames for asset management. So this is just to keep track of what we're doing, and this is directly related to as one of the first things we would do, because we would need to keep track of serial numbers because we are given a new laptop to the employee, and we have to have a way to track it, right? So this is one of those things I would do. I mean, all of these things you could do as part of the process of like what you would do in relation to this, but if you're strictly just a support technician who repairs the new laptop, then this is what I would do. And they talk about here deployment process, inventory to begin the deployment process, blah, blah, blah. This is most likely here, so I would go with document the serial number as username for asset management. I wish they had more technical questions than these weird like scenario questions. I feel like this has changed over time when it comes to CompTIA. But I digress, because I feel the technical questions are more important than these procedural questions. What is the procedure in installing, blah, 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 whatever. I feel like people should learn technical, more technical. The other stuff can just be learned later on the job, because this could be completely different from one place to another, right? Question number 5. A technician is installing M.2 device in several workstations. Which of the following would be required when installing the devices? Okay, so it's an M.2 drive. Okay, so I wonder what this could be. So what do we need? It says here, let me read this again. Which of the following would be required when installing devices? All right, let's see which applies the most. Air filtration. All right, no, it's unrelated. Heat resistant gloves for what? We're not blacksmiths or anything like that. Ergonomic floor mats for what? I mean, if you're a technician that stands on his feet, or anybody who stands on their feet while they're working in one spot, yeah, you could use ergonomic floor mats. But what does this have to do with M.2 device? Electrostatic discharge straps. So technically speaking, this would be the answer. So this is a textbook thing where if you're a technician that just does this, and are the main guy who deals with hardware, not just M.2 devices. This could be any computer component. If you're, let's say, working for a company that builds computers, you'd want to have a electrostatic discharge strap attached to you to basically discharge any electrostatic, so it doesn't zap the component and potentially make them, go bad. So, but it's like if you're a guy who just wants to build your own computer, just touch a piece of metal before you start to, deal with the component, just to make sure you discharge any electrostatic. But you don't need an electrostatic discharge strap to, add M.2 drives on several workstations. That's my personal opinion. Technically speaking, you do, as like if you were to work for a company, right? So that's a technical answer that this is D is correct, right? So I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't know why I talked about it so much. Anyways, question 6. A user's Windows desktop continuously crashes during boot. A technician runs the following command in safe mode and then reboots the desktop. So here's the command. And the command is, so basically you would run this as admin. So you can tell that they ran this as admin because if you'd open up CMD and you just open it up like this, you see how it just goes into your user's profile and not into this system. So they ran it as admin. So if I was to right click and run it as admin, you would get to this part where it says C Windows System 32. So they initiated a command that is sfc/scan now. So basically they're asking, what is this thing, right? What does this do? Now, the issue is that Windows Desktop continuously crashes during boot. So there is something wrong when it comes to the operating system, because how do we know? Is because it's during the boot process of the computer, right? So this is also refers to master boot record. So the master boot record has to work properly in order to boot correctly. So this is part of the operating system. All right, so they ran this command, which is sfc/scan now. So this command would scan the operating system for corrupted files. And if it finds any corrupted files, including the master boot record, if it finds that they're corrupted, it would reinstall them. It would reinstall them and repair them, right? So this is what this command does. So which of the following best describes why technician ran this command? So why did he use this command? Now we know what the command does, but why did he do it? It says A, the user profile is damaged. We know that's not the case. It has nothing to do with the user's profile. The system files are corrupted. So here we go. This is the answer here right now, because we've just talked about this, what this does. This scans for corrupted files and then replaces them if they are corrupted, including the master boot record, and that's what the problem was initially. C, the hard drive needs to be defragmented. No, that has nothing to do with it. The system needs to have a restore performed. No, that's not what this command does. This command, again, it scans for corrupted files and repairs them, or I should say replaces them if they are broken. This can actually help fix a lot of stuff, just so you know. So keep this in mind. It's good to remember this one. I like that this one is actually a technical question. Question 7. A user calls the IT help desk and explains that all data on the user's computer is encrypted. Okay, so they can't access it because the data on the computer is encrypted. The user also indicates that a pop-up message on the screen is asking for payment in Bitcoin to unlock the encrypted data. Oh, so this should bring back memories, right? It's asking for a payment, right? Remember what we talked about this? The user's computer is most likely infected with which one of the following, right? So we have to refer back to what we already talked about. So botnet, in this case, yes, it's a virus. And it basically takes control of your computer over the network, right? So it gives you basically an option to control a computer that's just on a network. That's the simplest explanation I can give you. Spyware, we all know what spyware is. It's something that's installed on your computer that spies on you and possibly, sends data to whomever on the internet. So it may like, detect your keystrokes and stuff and send it to God knows where, right? And then we got ransomware. And we know that we've talked about this. So the answer here is ransomware, because they're asking for payment in Bitcoins to unlock the encrypted data. So it's ransomware. They're holding your computer hostage and they want ransom for you to pay. Rootkit. Rootkit actually can be part of the ransomware, because rootkit, if somebody has access to the root of your computer, this is why it's called rootkit. The root of your computer is the C drive, right? That is why C drive is referred to the root, meaning that the root of your operating system. The rootkit can allow somebody to take control of your computer completely. And for those reasons, this can be also part of the ransomware, and it is most of the time is. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but ransomware does take control of your computer, and for that reason, these are related directly. So the answer is ransomware. Question 8. A network engineer needs to update a network firewall, which will cause temporary outage. So they need to update the firewall, which could cause temporary network outage. The network engineer submits a change request form to perform the required maintenance. So what happens is, if something like this is happening, like a network firewall update on a network firewall, or any changes to the network, a change request is sent to perform a required maintenance. What does that mean? That means that a request is sent, and it could be a form like of a ticket. It's called a change ticket. You would submit it, and it would be sent to somebody who's going to approve this type of maintenance, this type of update. meaning that you fill it out and you say, we're wanting to do this and that. In this case, we would say we're going to update the network firewall during this time, and then you send the change request, which is changing something on the network in this situation, and whoever goes to, they would approve it and say, okay. That's what the change request is, also known as change ticket. If the firewall update fails, which of the following is the next step? So if the update fails, what would you do next? Right? What would you do next? Okay. Now, I will explain to you one of the things when it comes to the change request is that you have to fill it out in a way. So you have multiple options. One would say, what are you doing? At what time? Who did you inform? And what's your backup plan? Right? So you have to have a backup plan when it comes to, in case it doesn't work properly. So you have to have a backup to revert to. So let's say you're doing network update on network firewall, you need to have a backup of the old firewall in case this fails. So that way you can revert back to it. A, perform a risk analysis. That's something you would do ahead of time. Execute a backup plan. So there it is. Backup plan. We would execute a backup plan. That means we're backing out of the update that we want to do to the firewall. All right, so we need to have a plan for this. A request a change approval. Well, you've done that by doing this here, change request form, right? So you've submitted this already. So this was done previously. So it's not that. Acquire end user acceptance. No, you don't need end user acceptance for this at all. This is something just needs to be, a change request needs to be approved by like usually a manager or something, right? In this case, if it fails, we would execute a back out plan. Whereas we're backing out of the update, right? Something changed and we need to back out. Or if it fails to begin with, we need to have a plan to back it out of that. So something that's going to prevent us from that update. Question number 9. Which of the following workstation operating system uses NTFS for standard file system type? So we need to know which computer operating system uses NTFS. So this should be pretty straightforward, but let's go through it. A, Mac OS. No, Mac OS doesn't use NTFS. B, Windows. Windows uses NTFS. Chrome OS doesn't use it. Linux doesn't use it. So the answer is Windows. So let's talk about these other ones so that we don't just like run over this question here. Mac OS uses, I believe it's called Apple file system. So that's what Mac uses. Again, Windows uses NTFS. Chrome OS, since it's based off of Linux, uses I don't want to say dot, but ext type of file system. Same thing with Linux. Now, I think there are some versions of Linux that can use some other version of file system, but that's what usually is. It's ext. All right, here we go. Question number 10. Which of the following Linux commands will display directory of files? I'm surprised to see a Linux question in A+, but that's fine. So we've got basically some commands that are for Linux. A, CHOWN. We're going to talk about all these. And then we've got B, LS, and it says, which of the following Linux command will display directory of file? So this is equivalent to CMD when it comes to DIR. So directory, right? This here means list system. I believe that's what it stands for. But that's the answer, LS. And then we got chmod for C, and then we got DCLS. We can talk about these briefly just so we have something that we're talking about when it comes to Linux. But and it's actually very simple. So in this case, if you look at Linux, it's not really that intimidating, right? Yes, you use a lot of commands, but a lot of times you can use common sense when it comes to these. So let's look at the first one. It says CH. CH usually means change. So in Linux command line, this would usually indicates a change of some sort. And then here it says OWN. That means change ownership of a file, right? So this is what that command does, change ownership of. So it's related to permissions, equivalent to the Windows. So change ownership of a file. LS, we already said, means list system or list. Anyways, it's same thing as the IR. And then we got CHMOD. So we know that CH means change. And then here in this case, MOD means mode. So changing the mode. That's what that means. And then we've got CLS. This just means clear screen. So CL means clear, and this case refers to screen. All right. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Please tell your friends about this video. I'll share it with them. I'm going to share this on LinkedIn. Usually I like to share this type of stuff on LinkedIn. So if you have friends that need this type of training, please share it with them. Again, I'm not sponsored. I'm not doing this to promote CompTIA at all, because for obvious reasons, my stuff is free, and they don't necessarily agree with that. So this is why they see me as a competitor, right? So, and that's perfectly fine. The reason I wanted to make this is because companies do ask for certifications, and first thing that comes to their mind is A+, right? So to measure people's ability to, I guess, know stuff. Do I agree with CompTIA and the way they do things? Not necessarily, but I wanted to create this in case somebody or one of you actually needs this, right? They need some kind of idea of what to expect during this certification exam, right? So this is the type of stuff you can expect, because this is directly from them. This is not something I came up, and this is 100% free. So if you go to CompTIA and look for free stuff, there will be a bunch of free practice questions. I can make another one, which would be the essentials. I think it's called the essentials or something like that. CompTIA IT fundamentals. IT fundamentals. That's what it is. IT fundamentals. And if you want to see that video, let me know and I'll make that one as well. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.